Everybody loves pasta, and while cooking noodles and stirring in some jarred sauce may be the easiest cooking that you can do, sometimes I just want the satisfaction of making my own sauce. So today I'm cooking 3 delicious pasta sauces that range from incredibly simple to slightly more involved, but I think are all well worth your time. So let's dive right into the deep end with one of my favorites, pasta alla zozzona. I started by slicing 3 strips of guanciale, which is similar to bacon, but it's made from pork jowl instead of the belly, and it isn't smoked. Guanciale is one of the many gems of Italian cooking, but here in the States it can be difficult to get. So feel free to sub pancetta or jowl bacon like I did, or unsmoked bacon, or even just the regular stuff if that's all you can find. Then I rendered the pork until it's crispy while I minced half a Spanish onion and 2 cloves of garlic. Once the guanciale is done, I used a Peltex to separate the meat from the fat. We're gonna use both, so don't throw anything away. I squeezed an Italian sausage into the pan and cooked it over medium heat while I broke it up with a wooden spoon. Once the sausage is starting to look like ground meat, stir in the garlic and cook it for about 30 seconds until it's very aromatic. Then add the minced onion and cook that for a few minutes before adding the crispy guanciale and 250 milliliters of red wine to deglaze the pan and get all of the delicious fond into the sauce. Whenever I add wine to a sauce, I like to reduce it down until it's almost fully evaporated to remove acidity before adding any additional liquids. Next up are the tomatoes, and while you can use any tomato puree or passata or blended canned tomato that you want, if you happen to have something that looks like this in your kitchen, this is a perfect moment for it. These food mills are best case when making tomato sauce because they remove all of the seeds and also don't stir any air into the sauce, which will keep it as red as possible and slightly intensify the flavor. Now the sauce just needs to be simmered for 15 minutes or so until it's thickened. And as you can imagine, this is already a delicious pasta sauce. But pasta alla zozzona is at its core a greatest hits of the 4 famous Roman pastas, one of which is carbonara. So I separated 4 egg yolks and mixed them with a cup of pecorino romano, a lot of coarsely ground black pepper, and the bacon fat we rendered a minute ago. Before we finish this, the red sauce part will keep for about a week in your fridge. And this recipe makes about a pound of pasta, which depending on how many you're cooking for, might be way too much. So you can save maybe half and only use 2 yolks or even a quarter if you'd like. The classic pasta choice is rigatoni, and you want to make sure to cook it fully. For me, that's al dente. More on that in a moment. About a minute before the timer goes off, take a few spoonfuls of hot pasta water and whisk it into the egg yolks. Then pour that mixture into the still warm red sauce, add back the strained pasta, and cook it over low heat for just a minute until the sauce gets thicker. This pasta is delicious. One thing I always recommend is to finish your pasta with a nice olive oil, whatever cheese and herbs you might be using, and black pepper or chili flake. This next recipe is one of my favorites. Not only is it incredibly delicious and sort of unexpected, but it also happens to be vegan. I started by trimming baby bella mushrooms. This entire mushroom is edible, but I do like to cut the bottom of the stem off, and then I sliced them thin and ran my knife through them until they were minced up. I also use shiitake mushrooms, stems pulled fully off and sliced into thick strips. This combination of mushrooms is going to bring a lot of great textures as well as flavors to the dish. Over medium heat, I added the shiitakes along with olive oil and cooked them until they were starting to take on some color. Then I added the minced mushrooms and cooked it all until everything was deeply caramelized. While that's working, I sliced 2 garlic cloves, minced half an onion, as well as half a head of fennel, which if you haven't done before, do the same way you would cut an onion. I added the garlic and olive oil into a cold pan and cooked it over medium heat until the garlic is lightly golden brown. Then I added the onions and cooked everything until it's caramelized. Then I added fennel seed, which I ground in a mortar and pestle, and the minced fennel. Cooked this for a couple of minutes to sweat the fennel and then added in crushed San Marzano tomatoes along with the mushrooms and cooked this for just a few minutes. Then I seasoned it with salt, added some fresh oregano leaves, and a nice spicy extra virgin olive oil. The sauce is surprisingly meaty and delicious, and you can eat it with any pasta, but this also works on many other things. Back in the day, I cooked for a chef named Jean-Georges, and we served an admittedly slightly more complex, but very similar version of this sauce with lamb chops and an annatto seed oil, and it was delicious. So don't feel limited to just pasta. And finally, I wanted to include a cream sauce because these are just incredibly simple, and I think this version is also super delicious. I added 500 milliliters of heavy cream to a pan, and this is totally optional, but I had lots of extra oregano, so I tied it up with butcher's twine and added it to the cream, which I reduced over high heat for about 5 minutes until it's about half gone. And then I added a cup of grated Parmesan, freshly ground black pepper, half a lemon zest, and a few tablespoons of cold butter. which I whisked in and then removed the oregano, seasoned it lightly with salt, and that's it. It's done, and it is surprisingly delicious. For this sauce and really any other pasta sauce that doesn't have egg, I like to cook the noodles for about a minute, less than the directions say, then take a quarter cup of the pasta water and finish cooking the noodles with the pasta water in the sauce. This really helps the sauce penetrate the pasta. I also finished this with freshly grated Parmesan, lemon zest, and black pepper. I really wanted to bomb this with half a shaved black truffle, so if you're feeling fancy, you should definitely do that. But anyway, that's all for me on this one. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.